Okay. We have 9 participants. Let's wait for a few more minutes for the other. Okay. For the midterm and the quiz 3, I'm not planning to change anything else. I mean, again, instead of your midterm 2, you will have a take-home assignments, and it will be a 30% of your whole grade, right? I will not change anything. And you will have an additional quiz 3, again, take-home quiz 3, take-home assignments as a quiz 3. So I will not change anything on this part as well. So I will take best of 2 quizzes, 25% of your first midterm, 30% of your second midterm, and 35% of your final. Hopefully, what about the time given for the midterm? Well, it will be a take-home, so I think, I don't know, I will let you know, but 1 day, 2 day probably is more than enough. So you will have time to do it, hopefully by yourself. Right? Probably it will be on the second half of April. Let's finish few chapters. Of course, it will be based on this chapter, stock valuation, risk and return. We will cover the risk part, risk and return, and your assignments cover that part. Probably the second half of the April, I will let you know the detail. Right? Okay. It's 2:50. Let's get started. Right? I will let you know the details, Cameron. Don't worry. I will send you the details. Don't worry. Okay. First question. If a company has a PE ratio of 8, which is expected, well, today I'm planning to cover the study questions only, right? Nothing special, nothing new. First question. If a company has a PE ratio of 8 right now and expected to increase to 10 in 5 years, so in 5 years' time, we'll see price earning ratio of 10. The current earning per share is $5.07 and expected to growth rate at 5% for the same period. So this earning per share will increase 5% on each year, right? What is the estimated price, or estimated stock price in year 5? Okay, so price earning ratio, let's say POEO, is 8 right now, and P5, E5 in year 5 should be in 10, right? You see, right now it's 8 and expected to be 10 here, right? Expected to be 10 in 5 years' time, right? So the question is asking for the estimated price, P5, price 5 in year 5, right? We know that PE ratio is 10. We need to find the expected earning per share in year 5. So expected earnings is 507 for this year and expected to increase 5% for 5 years, right? Expected to increase 5% for 5 years will be our expected earnings in year 5, right? If you calculate this number, it is equal to 6.47, right? So the E5 expected earning per share in year 5 is expected to be 6.47 47. If it is the case with the 10 PE ratio, price of this stock in year 5 is expected to be 64.71, right? So P5 should be 6.471 equal to 10. And based on this calculation, we can find that estimated price should be 64.71 in year 5. Is it clear, guys? Any question? Clear. Thank you very much. It's okay. Thank you. Great. Thank you very much, guys. Okay, let's move to the question 2. If a company has a PE ratio of 14, required return is 12%, dividend yield is 3.5%, and what's the growth rate due to capital appreciation, right? In this question, the 14 PE ratio is an additional information. We don't need to use it, right? It's given to confuse you. I mean, it's not. We will not use this price earning ratio. We know that required return 12% has two components. Some part comes from dividend yield, some part comes from the growth rate, right? So from our previous classes, we know that required return has two components, RE, dividend plus growth, right? In this question, required return is given as a 12%. This 12% is equal to dividend yield is 3.5% plus growth rate, right? So the growth rate is equal to 8.5%. Dividend yield is basically, what's dividend yield? You remember D1 divided by P0 is your dividend yield, right? D1, next year expected dividend, divided by this year's price, the market price right now, P0, is your dividend yield, right? So it's given as a 3.5%. So the remaining part is 8.5 is your growth rate. Okay. Clear question? Clear? Yes, growth rate is equal to our capital gain. If you calculate it, your next year P1, right? Your P1 is more than same as your growth rate, right? Because we assume that the dividend is increasing with the growth rate. So the next year price level should be same as your growth rate. So we have two components, dividends, yield, and growth rate, capital gain part, right? Okay, question 3. Suppose the company has a net free cash flow of 5 million right now, right? And expected to grow at 30% during the next 3 years, then 7% thereafter. So we have two steps, two parts, two periods, right? The first period, first step, free cash flow increase 30%, and after the second period, it will increase 7%, right? The company has a debt of 75 million and the 5 million shares outstanding, right? The company pays no dividends. The firm's equity value, assuming discounted with 12%. So what is the firm's equity value, right? The question is asking for the equity value, not the company value. Okay, the first thing is draw your timeline. So right now it's 5 million year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4. Each year until year 3 increase 30%, and year 4 7% forever, right? So here is our timeline. Right now 5 million is the free cash flow and expected to increase 30% each year for the next 3 years, right? So we can calculate the free cash flow 1, next year free cash flow, which is 30% more than this year. So it is 6.5, isn't it? 5 times 1.3. Then next year, year 2, could you please calculate the year 2 free cash flow? I'm calculating as well. Right, 8.45. Thank you very much. The next year is year 3 should be 10.985. And the year 4 is right. 14. Which one is the 14.28, Rıza? Year 4. No, because year 4, read the question, year 4 should be 7% more than year 3. Because we have, look, our cash flow. We have 30% year 1, year 2, and year 3, 30% increase. Then we have 7% increase on year 4, right? So year 1 is 6.5, year 2 is 8.45, year 3 is 11 point something else. I couldn't see. Let me see. No, sorry, not 11, but 10.98 year 3. Then year 4 is 11.75, which is 7% more than year 3. Okay, is it clear? Okay, thank you. So in your timeline, you see we have the cash flows, free cash flows, right? So what's the value of this firm? The whole value is discounted cash flows. We need to discount this cash flow separately. But starting from year 4 to forever, the growth rate is 7%, right? So we cannot do it manually. So we need to calculate it by our formula, which is terminal value 3 should be equal to free cash flow 4 divided by weighted average cost of capital minus growth rate, right? So here is the weighted average cost of capital minus growth rate, which is the terminal value 3 for year 3. In the question, it doesn't say weighted average cost of capital, but says discount this equity with 12%, right? So this investors required, or the company, discount its cash flow with 12%. So it's given. We don't need to calculate the weighted average cost of capital. So we use the given discount rate. We discount this number with 12%, right? So we can let's go back to terminal value 3. What's the terminal value 3 in this case? Free cash flow 4 is the 11.754 divided by 0.12 minus growth rate is 0.07, right? So this part gives you the terminal value 3. Could you please calculate it? These numbers, these calculations. Let me calculate as well. Yes, 235.08. 235.08. Right. So this is the terminal 3 value. Let's draw this value in year 3. Right. So in year 3, on our cash flow in year 3, we have the terminal value of 235. Right. So we need to discount all numbers, all cash flow, free cash flows, using 12% discount rate. So in this case, the value of the firm, whole value, is equal to free cash flow 6.1 divided by 1.12 plus 8.45 divided by 1.12 square plus 10.985 divided by 1.12 cube plus 235.08 divided by 112 cube, right? So this calculation, this discount, right? These numbers gives you the value of firm, the whole value, right? We basically discount 6.5, the free cash flow, first year, second year, third year free cash flow, and the terminal value, third year terminal value with 12%, right? So this is the value of whole company. But the question is asking for value of equity itself, not the whole company, right? Then you remember we had an example, 5 million, your company, all assets in your company is the 5 million. Then you have a liabilities of 2 million, right? You took a loan from somewhere else, from a bank, and 2 million. And the value of your equity, the remaining, is your 3 million, is what's left as an equity. So in this question, it's asking for that 3 million part. We know that 5 million in our example, simple example. Here, when you calculate this cash flow, right, you end up with 187.76 million dollars, right? So this is the value of whole company minus, in our example, 5 million example, we have liabilities of 2 million, 2 million loan, 2 million debt. But in this case, in this question, we have 75 million. Right? 75 million. So the remaining is 112.76 million dollars, right? Like our 3 million example, the equity value in this question is 112.76 million, right? Is it clear? Any question, guys? Yes, please, Kamran.
So we have nothing to do with the number of shares?
Well, in this part, no, nothing to do with the number of shares. But the next question, if you read the question 4, question 4 is exactly the same as the question 3. Let's say the part B, not the question 4, but question 3, part B, assume it's. Now it's asking for the stock price, right?
Okay.
Then we will use the number of shares in this part.
And also I found the value of the company 112.62, something like this.
Yes, no, it's okay. Probably because of the rounding error. So it's okay.
Maybe.
Don't worry. But the point is, you should know how to do it. I mean, the methods. So
Okay.
I don't care about the numbers too much.
Thank
Right? If we need to find per share, then yes, as you said, Letafet, exactly. Then in question 4, we need 5 million. In question 4 is now it's much easier to calculate. We know the value of equity, 112 million. When we divided this part to 5 million, number of shares, right? Now it's equal to $22.53, right? So here is the question 4. Basically, you divide the number of outstanding shares and find the value of one share. Yes, per share, exactly. The value of one single share, $22.53. Exactly, Riza. But I guess up to now, you don't have any problem, you don't have any questions. Let's move on to the next one. Question 5. Right. A company's most recent free cash flow is 5 million ASEAN. Debt to equity ratio is 0.25. Present value of debt is 12 million ASEAN. The company has 2 million shares of common stock outstanding. Tax rate is 40%. The shareholders' required return is 16%. Cost of debt is 8%. And the growth rate for the free cash flow is 5%, right? So what is the value of this firm and what is the value per share of the equity, right? So first of all, we have both equity and debt, and we know their cost. We need to find the weighted average cost of capital, right? To find this question, first we need to find the weighted average cost of capital, right? So what's the formula for it? Weight of equity times cost of equity plus weight of debt times cost of debt, 1 minus tax rate, tax shield. So this is the formula for weighted average cost of capital, right? Then debt to equity ratio is given as 0.25. Can you please calculate the weight of debt and weight of equity based on debt to equity ratio 0.25? Please spend a few minutes because we need weight of debt and weight of equity, right, to calculating weighted average cost of capital. Equity is 80, so the remaining is 20 is the debt, right? Exactly. Any problem, guys? Any problem for that part? I guess you can all calculate the equity and debt weight. Okay, I guess it's clear. Then weight of equity is 0.80 times cost of equity is given as 16%, 0.16, plus 0.2 times cost of debt is given as 0.08, 1 minus 0.4, right? So this, the last part, okay, can you see? The last part is your weighted average cost of capital. Let me, is it better right now? Is it? Okay. Yes, good. So we can calculate the weighted average cost of capital. If you calculate it, you will end up with 13.76%, right? Okay, let me show you again. Yes, here, right? So cost of equity is 16% given times the weight of equity is 80% in our company, plus weight of debt is 20% times cost of debt is 8% times 1 minus tax rate, tax shield. Okay, clear. Done. So we know that weighted average cost of capital is 13.76%, right? The value of the firm, market value of the firm, is equal to free cash flow 1 divided by weighted average cost of capital minus growth rate, right? So we already calculate weighted average cost of capital as a 13.76%. Growth rate is 5% is given in the question, right? And we need to find the free cash flow 1, next year cash flow. We know that the recent cash flow is 5 million, it's given, and we know that growth rate is 5%. So next year free cash flow should be 5% more than this year, right? 0.1376 minus growth rate is the 5%, right? So this calculation, 5.25 million free cash flow 1 divided by 0.1376 minus 0.05 gives you the value of the firm, right? So the total value of the firm in this case is yes, you're right, 59.9 million USD. Yes, Cameron, you're right. Most recent free cash flow is the current free cash flow. So we can take it as a free cash flow of 0, right? For free cash flow 1, next year cash flow should be 5% in this question. The growth rate more, should be higher, should be multiplied with 1 plus growth rate, right? So in this case, your value of this company is 59.9 million ASEAN. We know that total debt is 12 million, so it's given, right? So remaining 47.9 million USD is the value of equity. Okay, so here is the, right? So your value of equity is equal to 47.9 million, right? Then if you divide this number to the number of shares outstanding, which is 2 million, one share is equal to 23.97 ASEAN USD. It's not USD, ASEAN, I'm sorry. Anyway, doesn't matter. Right? So for this question, the value of firm, the first part, is equal to $59.9 million or AZN. And the second part, what's the value per share, is 23.97 AZN. It's clear? Any question? Good. Okay, I guess it's clear. Okay, let's check the question 6. Right. A company has a dividend of 2.5 AZN per share. Currently, its debt to equity ratio is 0.4. Expected return on the market is 9%. Risk-free rate is 4%. The company has a beta of 1.5 and expected growth rate is 4.5, right? So beta 1.5 means that if the index goes up, the market itself, the altogether, goes up 10%, our shares increase 15%, right? In the same direction. And of course, it's true for the other side as well. If the index goes down to 10%, our shares goes down to 15%. So our shares itself is much more volatile than the market, right? So beta 1.5 means this. We have the risk-free rate of 4%. The market return, expected market return is 9%. So we can calculate the required return and expected return. You know that both required return and expected return are equal in equilibrium, are same, by using capital asset pricing model, right? Based on this capital asset pricing model, we know that expected return or required return should equal to risk-free rate plus beta times market return minus risk-free rate, right? So let me show you. Okay. So based on capital asset pricing model, we can find the required return using this formula. So risk-free rate is given as 4%, 0.04, plus beta is 1.5 is given, times 0.09 minus 0.04 again, right? So this is your expected return or required return. Of course, right? So beta 1.5 means our stock itself is more volatile than the index. If beta is equal to 1, right, means that our stock is moving with the index. If index goes 1%, our stock goes 1%, if in case of beta equal 1. If index goes down 1%, our stock goes down 1%. So we are moving same as the index, exactly, right? If it is 1.5, means that like elasticity, yes, we can say it. So if beta is 1.5%, means that our stock is more volatile. I mean, index increase 1%, our stock increase 1.5%. Or let's think about the negative side. Index decrease 2%, right? Our stock decrease 3%. I'm 1.5 times more. Okay, good. Right. So we can calculate the expected return as 11.5%. Right. Right. So we know that the dividend right now is 2.5. So D1, we can calculate the D1. Based on this formula, we can calculate the price. So what's D1? D1 is 4.5% more, because the expected growth rate is 4.5%, 4.5% more than this year dividends, right? So D1 should equal to 2.5, the current dividend, times 1045, divided by 0.115 minus 0.045. So this gives you the current price, right? If you calculate it, it's equal to 37.32. Let me write here 37.32. Okay, right. Okay. Of course, as you have seen, there is an additional information in this question as well. So it's given debt to equity ratio as 0.4, but we don't need it. We don't need to use it, this additional information. We use beta. Beta is used here. Let me show you, Tana. Here, while we are calculating the expected return, we use beta, right? 1.5 times market return 9%, minus risk-free rate. Okay. Any question, guys, up to now? Okay, good. So the next question is a little bit challenging question, right? Excuse me. Yes, I'm back. I'm sorry. Right. In this question, the company is expected, the question 7. Any questions up to 6, including the question 6? I guess clear. No question. Okay. Right. The previous answer, I'll show you. Yes, 37.32. Right. Question 7. The company is expected to experience a growth in 3 stages in the future. The most recent dividend is $0.90 or 90 cents per share, and we have the following information. So we have 3 stages, 3 periods, 3 steps. For the first 3 years, we have 30% dividend growth rate, and during this period, shareholders' required return is 20, right? For the second period, transition period, it's again 3 years. The dividend growth rate is expected to be 9%, and the shareholders' required return again 20, right? Then for the last period, last stage, last steps, we have constant rate of 3%, constant growth rate of 3%, right? But be careful, shareholders' required return is 10 in this part, right? Not 20. So we have 3 stages for dividend growth, 30%, 9%, and 3%. And we have a 2 stage on shareholders' required return, 20 and 10, right? So let's draw the timeline. It's much easier to see on the timeline. So D1, D2. Yes, Cameron, please ask your question.
The question is asking what's the present value of the equity, but in order to know equity, we need also to know the number of shares, outstanding shares. I think it should be the present value of stock.
Yes, you're right. The question, yes, you're right. The question should be what's the value of this stock, not the value of equity. We don't have the number of shares. Right, you're right. Exactly. Thank you very much. Anyway, let's find the P0, the price of the stock, right? For the first 3 years, we have 30% growth rate. For the second 3 years, we have 9% growth rate. And starting from year 6, no, year 7, we have 3% growth rate forever, right? So this is our cash flow. So the dividends, next year dividends, expected to be 30% more for 3 years, then 9% more for the additional 3 years, and starting from year 7, it's 3% more, okay? Constant growth rate, right? So we can calculate the dividends, each year dividends, isn't it? So what's the first year dividends in this case? 0.9 is the D0. So what's the first year dividends? Could you please calculate it? Yes, 1.70. Second year dividends, which is 30% more than D0. Second year is 1.52, isn't it? 30% more again. And D3 is 1.9773. Right. Yes, D3 is almost 1.98. But my suggestion, use 4-digit after comma because it makes huge differences after a certain point. So please try to use 4-digit after the comma, right? So you can find the D4. D4 is the D3 times 1.09, which is 2.1553, right? So this is the D4, so 9% more than D3, right? So we can calculate the D5, D6. Let me write 2.92, 3492. D6 is 2.5607, and D7 is equal to D6 times 103, which is equal to 2.6375, right? So we can calculate the D6, D5, D6, and D7. Once again, be careful, D7 is 3% more than D6, right? So we can calculate the all dividends. So what is the price P0? Basically, the price is equal to discounted cash flow, discounted as dividends. Until year 6, we can do it manually, right? Let's go back to the timeline. We can do it manually until year 6, but starting from year 7 to infinity, we cannot do it manually. We need to calculate it using our formula, right? So we need to find the P6, which is D7 divided by RE minus G, right? So using our formula, we can find P6, price 6, right? So we know that D7. Is there any way to make this calculation in financial calculator? Yes, that should be. So based on the cash flow, the different cash flow, there should be some, yes, you can do it. But unfortunately, my financial calculator is in Baku. I have this one, my daughter's calculator, unfortunately, so I cannot show you how to do it. Right, let's go back to the questions. So we know D7, we already calculated 2.6375 divided by, in questions, be careful, the shareholders' required return starting from the year 7 is 10%, right? Not 20. So until the year 6, the 20%, and starting from year 7, it's 10%. So required return until the year 6, including year 6, of course, is 20%, shareholders' required return. After year 7, it's 10%, right? So that's why and calculating P6, I'm using 10%, right? Not the 20%, because starting from year 7 to infinity, shareholders' required return is 10%, and the growth rate is 3%, right? We know the D7, we already calculated dividend 7, right? So this part is equal to P6. If you calculate it, it's equal to exactly 37.67, right? 67.86, right? You're right, Cameron. Thank you. So let's go back to our timeline again. So we have in our timeline, we have P6 here, price 6 here, right? So manually, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dividends. We can discount it with 20% because for the next 6 years, required return for this investors are 20. We discount with 20. And also we need to discount year 6, right, P6, with the 20% discount rate, right? Basically, we are discounting D1 with 1.2 plus D2 with 1.2 square plus D3 1.2 cube, D4 1.2 4 plus right. Basically, we are discounting each dividend individually with 20% required return, right? 5, 6, plus we need to discount P6 with again 20% discount rate. Why 20? Because for the next 6 years, the required rate is 20%, right? So that's why we are discounting with the 20. And if you calculate this part, you end up with $18.63, right? So this is the solution of this question. Is it clear? Any question? Any parts that you don't understand? Of course, here is the timeline again. What if 10% return started from year 7? 10%, you mean starting from year 7? In the questions, let me check once again. Shareholders required return is 10 again. I couldn't get your question, Tarana.
Excuse me, can you explain again why it's 20% till 6?
Year 6. Oh, okay. Okay, please read the questions, go back to questions. In the questions, it says, we have high growth period. During this high growth period, dividend growth rate is 30% and the shareholders required return is 20, right, for 3 years. And the next transition period, again, the shareholders required return is 20, right? Right? So in the question, let's go back to the timeline again. In the question, it's given that starting from now to year 6, the shareholders required return is 20%. So that's why we are using 20% for the 6 years. 3 years 20, and the following 3 years again 20. Right? Is it clear, Riza?
Yes, it's clear. And why you decided to get the 10% till the end? And will
Because
it be like till infinity or not?
yes, because in the question it says that for the constant growth period, for the last period, for the third period, dividend growth rate is 3%, right? And the shareholders required return after year 6, starting from year 7, is 10%. So, Tarana, well, sorry for my drawing, so that's why maybe you couldn't get it. But starting from 6 to infinity, the required return is 10%. So that's why to find the P6, we use 10% as a required return, right? Then we calculate P6. Is it clear, guys?
Yes, it's clear for me. And back to the Tarana's question, like she asked actually, what happened if the 10% starts from the 7th year?
So let's assume that we have 5% between 7 and 6, right? Let's assume we have one more period like this. Is it the question, Tarana? No. Okay, what's the question? The return chains, yes, yes, but my drawing. I'm sorry for my drawing. Of course, the shareholders' required return might be different, might change in any periods, of course. So if it is the case, you need to add one more step. You need to calculate separately, right? Yeah, yes, it's possible. I mean, you can play with the numbers. You can add. You may say that shareholders required return is 10% for 3 years. I'm starting from 7 to, let's say, 9. Starting from year 9, the shareholders required return is something else, let's say 7%, right? Different than 10%, right? So you need to calculate separately again. You need to discount it separately. It's a good question. Yes, in this case, you're right, Cameron. The present value of this equity is 18.63, 63.51. Yes, probably you're right. I didn't calculate fully. You're right. Okay. Is it clear? Is this part clear? I mean, this part is the most challenging part of this lecture. Okay. Still we have time. We can check the last question. Let's check the last one. Oh, so we have the following information. Debt ratio is the 40%, right? But be careful, it's not debt to equity ratio, it's debt ratio itself. So the remaining part is the, means that 40% is the debt. So what's the remaining? 60%, exactly. 60% is the equity, right? So you don't need to calculate it. So be careful when you read the questions. It's not debt to equity, but debt ratio. Cost of equity is 18%. Cost of debt is 8%. Tax rate is 35%. Free cash flow over the next 3 years, and the growth rate of these cash flows are, so, okay, next 3 years cash flow is given, so 100, 200, and 300, right? So it's given as for 3 years. After year 3, we have a growth rate of 4.89% per year, right? So what is the value of the firm? Okay, first of all, we need to find the weighted average cost of capital. Weighted average cost of capital. We know the weight of equity is 0.6 times cost of equity. It's given as 18%, 0.18, plus 0.4 is the weight of debt times 0.08 is the cost of debt, and the tax rate is 35%, right? So this is, can you see it? This is your weighted average cost of capital in this case, and it's equal to 12.88%, right? 12.88%, right? So let's draw the timeline. In the timeline, we have the free cash flow of 100 in year 1, 200 in year 2, and 300 in year 4. And starting from year 4, it will increase 4.89%, right? So year 4 should be 4.89% more. So what's it? Let me calculate. 300 times 10489. 114.67, right? So here is our timeline, right? So first cash flow of 100, 200, 300, and the fourth cash flow is 1.0489 times last cash flow, right? So based on this one, this information, we can find the terminal value 3, which is free cash flow 4 divided by weighted average cost of capital minus G, right? Okay, so the terminal value 3 is equal to 314.67 divided by weighted average cost of capital is 0.1288 minus the growth rate is 0.489, right? So this is your terminal value 3. If you calculate it, you'll end up with 3,000, if I'm not mistaken, 938.2979. Well, I'm not sure about the result. Could you please check it, the result? Well, I did it before, but I'm not sure right now. Could you please calculate it? Yes, it's correct, right? Minus 0.0489. Yes, it's correct. Right. Right. So we know, let's go back to the timeline. So in our timeline, we calculate the terminal value 3, right? As 3,938. Now we need to discount 100, 200, 300 and terminal value 3 with the weighted average cost of capital, right? The required return in this case will be 12.88. We need to discount it, all these numbers, with 1.88, I mean 12.88%, right? If you discount it, you can find the value of this firm. Guys, any questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Have a great day. See you next Tuesday. So next Tuesday we will have a new chapter. You can find these chapters PowerPoint's presentation on your Blackboard accounts, right? Thank you guys. See you. Bye.